I didn't come to the Arctic to chase fairy tales. I came for data. The others joked about it, that I'd given our little research project a nickname, Project Krampus, like I was secretly hunting some goat-hooved demon that snatches kids at Christmas. I let them joke. The name was a joke. The pattern wasn't. The missing teams, the dead beacons, the seasonal clusters of equipment failures and whiteout accidents that always happen in the 2 weeks around Christmas, all within the same 100-kilometer radius. If you graphed them on a map, the points formed a shape. Not a pentagram or anything dramatic, a spiral, pulling inward toward the coordinates where we built the station. The four of us flew in on the same cargo chopper, but we didn't really meet until the blades were gone and the noise thinned out into wind. The station crouched on the ice like a metal insect. One main module, a comms shack, a shed with the generators, and a few antenna towers pinned into the permafrost. Metallic, blue twilight, breath fogging, snow crystal like static. Ezra was the first one who moved. He adjusted his glasses with the shoulder, arms full of equipment cases, and said, "All right, let's go." Before my ears freeze off, he didn't like standing still. He never did. If he wasn't talking, he was moving. If he wasn't moving, his hands were. Lisa took one end of the crate he was about to drag solo. "There's a concept called teamwork, she said. "I read about it in a book." She was short, wrapped in so many layers, she looked like a walking laundry pile. But when she hefted the crate, you could see the muscle. Ex-military, logistics. The one who'd keep us fed and powered and not dead. Nikolai stood slightly off to the side, face unreadable under his beard, scanning the horizon instead of the station. Local hire, guide, spoke the language, knew the land, knew which ice would hold and which would swallow you. He squinted at the north ridge, where the clouds hung heavy and low. "Storm coming," he said. "Tomorrow, maybe the day after." "Then we set up today," Lisa said. "Inside, before my eyelashes fall off." They both looked at me when they said inside, like I was supposed to approve it. I adjusted the strap of my backpack, feeling the hard rectangle of the external drive thump against my spine. "Inside," I agreed. "We start pulling in satellites tonight." Nikolai snorted softly. "And listen for your Christmas monster." I didn't rise to it. "Electromagnetic anomalies," I said. "If anything's out here, it's leaving fingerprints. Monsters don't bother me. Noise does." It made him smile. A little. We hauled the rest of the gear in without talking much. That's the thing about cold like that. Language shrinks. Breath becomes more valuable than banter. Inside, the station was all yellow light and metal and the hum of old heaters. By the time the sun had dipped below the horizon, not that it rose very far anyway, we had power, intermittent internet, and enough heat to feel fingers again. We shared a first night dinner of powdered soup and stale crackers at the little table by the main window. Snow tapped the glass in soft bursts. "All right," Lisa said, tapping a spoon on the bowl like a gavel. "Ground rules. We're here 6 weeks, barring catastrophe. I run supplies and power. Ezra runs instruments and data. Nikolai keeps us from walking into holes, getting eaten by polar bears, or talking to ghosts in the snow." "Alex," she jerked her chin at me, "you're mission lead, so you get to yell at us if we break things." Ezra grinned. "And yell at the sky if it doesn't give him his spooky readings." It's just noise, I said, but I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. If there's a pattern, we'll see it. That's it. Nikolai watched me for a second, eyes thoughtful. Sometimes, he said, pattern is just story we tell ourselves about noise. I looked back at my bowl. Sometimes, I said, story is just excuse we use for ignoring the pattern. Nobody argued after that. The first week was normal, or at least as normal as life gets when the sun forgets how to climb. We woke, checked instruments, logged temperatures, wind speeds, aurora activity. Ezra cursed at frozen cables and finicky antennas. Lisa did inventory, like she genuinely found joy in counting cans. Nikolai went out twice a day to check snow buildup, ice conditions, and the perimeter flags that marked safe paths. I spent most of my time in the comm shack or at the main terminal, watching the data feed in. Signals from our array of sensors, satellite sweeps, old logs from previous expeditions, downloaded and cross-referenced, blips of interference. Technically, we were there to study atmospheric anomalies and their effects on communications infrastructure. No one in Ridge Peak actually cared about that. What they cared about were the blackouts. 6 years, 8 expeditions, 3 missing survey teams, 2 helicopters down, 1 station burned. Every event logged as equipment failure plus inclement weather. Every incident clustered between December 10th and January 2nd. When I'd pitched Project Krampus internally, I made it sound like a joke to get it past the more conservative committees. We give it a folklore code name, stir up some fun for the winter interns, I'd said. Meanwhile, we're looking at what's actually out there. Ghosts, demons, goat things. None of that mattered. What mattered was that whole teams disappeared into static, and we kept sending more. The first strange thing was small enough that I almost missed it. It came as we were reviewing an old log together in the common room. Ezra had pulled up an audio file from Station 7, a final transmission marked corrupted, dated 4 years ago to the day. The file clicked, hissed. A man's voice came through, distant, masked by wind. Repeat, visibility below 5 meters. We're pulling, static. Then faintly, like it was buried in snow. A bell, just one. Clear, metallic. Not an alarm, not electronic. The kind of bell you'd put on a horse or on a door at Christmas. Then nothing. That's it? Lisa asked. Ezra shrugged. That's how the file ends. The rest is garbage. Signal just falls apart. Could be intra-auroral wave band interference, I said automatically. Or the generator died mid-transmission. Or weird as hell, Ezra said. Say it. You want to. I didn't. I went back to the spectrogram, zoomed in on the moment the bell chimed. Clean frequency spike, no preceding distortion, no mechanical echo. Nikolai had been quiet. He sat on the edge of the table, fiddling with a small carved piece of bone on a cord around his neck. I'd seen it but never asked. Local story, he said finally, about bells in a whiteout. Hunters used to say, if you follow them, you find what you deserve. What does that mean? Lisa asked. He shrugged one shoulder. Depends who's telling it. Sometimes it means treasure. Sometimes it means teeth. Ezra grinned at me. Oh yeah, this is definitely fine. Totally fine that the nightmare folklore is on our tapes. It's a noise artifact, I said, more to myself than to anyone else. Random. A bit of radio leakage from some other transmission. No meaning, just pattern, Nikolai said softly. Or maybe story. Hard to tell difference from inside. I closed the file. We logged it. We moved on. For a while. The second strange thing happened 3 days later. It snowed all day. The world outside turning into a repeating static pattern on the other side of the window. By late afternoon, the wind had kicked up enough that you couldn't see the nearest antenna tower. Full whiteout, we hunkered in. Lisa cooked something that tried its best to be chilly. Ezra and I fought with a stubborn data log that refused to pass. Nikolai went out one last time, before zero visibility, to check the guidelines between buildings. He came back with ice crusted in his beard and something else in his eyes. Someone has been near the northern markers, he said, stamping snow from his boots. Lisa looked up from the stove. Someone? He nodded. Tracks, fresh, not ours. My chest tightened a little. Could be melt patterns, I said. Drift shapes or old tracks. He shook his head. Solid, crisp edges. You don't see that with old snow. And spacing was wrong for bear or caribou. Too uniform. Ezra slid off his stool. How many? He asked. 2 lines, Nikolai said. Side by side, like someone walking with something else. Like a sled? Lisa asked. Like hooves, Nikolai said. Ezra laughed, but it was too loud and too quick. Perfect. Fantastic. We have hoof prints now. Should we hang stockings? Maybe bribery will help. Lisa frowned. Could have been a reindeer. Someone's lost animal. In this storm, Nikolai asked, there is nothing out there that isn't supposed to be. He said it so flatly it shut the room up. I cleared my throat. Log it, I said. Get me the coordinates. Tomorrow, if visibility improves, we'll check again. Could be you saw the pattern wrong. Could be drift. Could be nothing. Could be, Nikolai said. He didn't sound convinced. That night, while the others slept, I sat in the comms shack listening. The wind roared over the mics. Every so often, the station creaked, protesting the cold. I almost missed it when it came through. Between one gust and the next, a thin high sound slid into the channel. Not quite wind, not quite metal. A chime, then another. Not rhythmic enough to be mechanical, not irregular enough to be random. I stared at the waveform, the same clean spike as the old file, like a fingerprint. I marked the time, saved the clip, and went back to the main module. Everyone was asleep. I lay in my bunk, eyes open in the dark, listening for bells that never came again. The first real crack in the group didn't come from bells, though. It came from a door that wouldn't open. It was 2 days after the whiteout. The storm had eased. The sky still hung low and bruised, but visibility was back. Nikolai went out to check the northern markers again, while Lisa did inventory, and Ezra and I argued about whether the interference we were seeing was auroral or mechanical. He came back sooner than expected. Door's stuck, he said, dropping his snow mask on the bench. Lisa looked up. Which door? Generator shed. Her expression tightened. She grabbed her parka. The two of them disappeared into the wind. Ezra glanced at me. You want to? In a minute, I said, eyes on the monitor. Finish the scrape on last night's data first. He hesitated like he wanted to press, then shook his head and went back to typing. The scrape wasn't giving me what I wanted anyway. The anomaly band I'd been watching, that thin knife slice of interference, had shifted. Slightly lower frequency, slightly longer duration, as if someone had reached into the noise and twisted the dial. By the time I gave up and joined the others, My fingers were buzzing with the tired electric feeling that comes from too many hours of staring at meaningless waves. The wind shoved against the station as I stepped outside. The world was a smear of white and grey, the only solid shapes the buildings and the faint line of flagged poles. I found Lisa and Nikolai at the generator shed. The outside handle was twisted, bent, like someone had grabbed it and tried to wrench it off. This wasn't weather, Lisa said, teeth clenched, or ice. She yanked. It gave a little, but the lower half of the frame was warped inward. Could be old damage, I said. Metal fatigue. It's not exactly new. Metal fatigue doesn't crumple inward, she said. Something pushed this. Hard. Nikolai stood a few feet back, studying the snow. Tracks? I asked. He shook his head. That's the problem. There were marks, shallow depressions, odd stepped ridges, but they didn't line up into anything you could call a footprint. More like something had been standing in place, rearranging the snow just by being there. Could be snow melt and refreeze, I said, aware of how automatic it sounded. He didn't argue. He didn't have to. We all knew the generator door wasn't supposed to look like that. We got it open eventually. The latch had been twisted, but the lock held. Inside, everything was normal. Diesel drums, humming machinery, the faint oily smell of fuel. Lisa ran a full check anyway. Nothing out of spec, she muttered when she came out. But I'm not loving the idea that someone came and knocked anyway. Ezra met us halfway back to the module, arms wrapped around himself, even though he was wearing the same gear as us. He looked pale. Did you guys move my stuff? He asked. Lisa frowned. What stuff? My tablet, my notes. That stupid mug with the raccoon on it. Somebody moved them. Desk was a mess. I didn't touch it, I said. Nor I, Nikolai added. They looked at each other. It's probably just you, I said. Sleep deprivation. You were up late last night clipping that audio file. Maybe you... I know what my own desk looks like. He took a breath, slowed himself down. It's not that things were just shifted. It's that they were organized, color-coded, sorted. That's not how I work. Maybe you turned over a new leaf, Lisa said, trying for humor. He didn't smile. Someone was in our stuff, he said. That's not weather. That's not waves. That's someone. I thought of the bent door handle, the not quite tracks in the snow, the bells. Okay, I said slowly. We tightened procedure. Doors locked, check-ins regular, no going out alone. And if anybody hears or sees anything that doesn't feel right, we log it immediately. No more shrugging it off. Is this where we start talking about monsters? Liza asked. This is where we start talking about patterns, I said. Nikolai glanced north again. Patterns don't knock, he said quietly. The first disappearance happened that night. We didn't know it had happened until morning. I woke to the smell of coffee and something fried, probably the last of the eggs, before we surrendered to powdered things entirely. For a moment, sunlight fooled my brain into thinking of home. Then I remembered where we were, and the tightness in my chest came back. I rolled out of the bunk. The main room was warm. Lights humming, coffee machine sputtering. Lisa stood at the counter, poking at a pan. Ezra sat at the table, hair a mess, blinking at his tablet. Morning, I said. Lisa grunted. Ezra lifted 2 fingers in a vague salute. A third mug sat by the pot. Nikolai already out? I asked. Lisa shook her head. Haven't seen him. Bunk was empty when I walked by though. Maybe he went checking flags early. You know he likes beating the cold. I checked the clock. 0612. Earlier than he usually went. I went to the small sleeping module. Nikolai's bunk was empty. His parka and boots were gone. His carved bone charm was not on its hook. I felt a thin thread of unease twist in my stomach. No note. Back in the main room, I picked up his radio from the charging dock. Station to Nikolai. You out there? Static. Ezra looked up properly now. Nothing, he asked. Could be dead zone, I said. Could be he forgot to turn it on. Does he forget things? Lisa asked. I didn't answer. We waited. We tried again. Nothing. Ezra fiddled with the dials, checked the battery, switched channels. Nothing. 2 hours later, the panic arrived. It didn't come as screaming or running. It came as the moment when all three of us stopped assuming this was a minor glitch that would self-correct and realized it wasn't. Lisa's knuckles had gone white around her mug. Ezra's bouncing leg had stilled. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. We go after him, Lisa said finally. We follow his usual route. If he's down in a drift, if he went north, Ezra said, toward the markers he didn't like yesterday. Then we especially go, she snapped. She wasn't wrong. She also wasn't calm. I weighed the options. Storm conditions, moderate, visibility, down, but not zero. Temperature, brutal, but survivable for a few hours in full gear. Time since last sighting, unknown. Risk of losing more people, real. Two go, I said. One stays. Radio's on, constant contact. If we lose signal, you come back. Lisa immediately said, I'll go. Ezra hesitated. I'm the most replaceable, he muttered, if we're playing that game. It was supposed to be a joke. It wasn't funny. I didn't like any configuration where someone went out there without Nikolai. But letting him stay out there alone, if he was even alive, was worse. In the end, Lisa and I went. Ezra stayed behind, tethered to us by voice and static. We followed the flagged line north. Snow crunched under our boots in layers of sound. The world narrowed to a tunnel of white, the station shrinking behind us until it was a dim shape in the distance. Nikolai! Lisa shouted every few minutes. The wind tore his name apart and flung it back in pieces. After half an hour, we found his tracks. 2 lines of boot prints leading away from the safe path. No return tracks. He'd broken right toward the ridge. Lisa swore softly into her mask. Idiot, she muttered. He'd never. But he had. We followed. The snow deepened. Our legs started to ache. The sky turned from gray to the harsh white that feels like being inside a light bulb. The tracks angled down into a shallow depression, then stopped. There were no signs of struggle. No blood, no torn fabric. Just a smooth circular depression in the snow where the tracks ended, as if he'd taken one last step and simply dropped out of existence. Lisa stared. What the hell, she whispered. The radio crackled at my belt. How's it looking? Ezra's voice thinner than usual. You've been quiet. Lisa spoke before I could. Tracks ended in a bowl, she said. No signs of him. No disturbance. Like he vanished. Could be drift, Ezra said. You know, snow filling in the... Drift doesn't erase all depth like someone ironed it, she said. I crouched, running my gloved hand over the depression. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. The snow was smooth, too smooth, like glass that had been poured and cooled. Ezra, I said slowly, how's the anomaly band? There was a pause, then the sound of frantic typing. Spiked 10 minutes after you left, he said. It's still elevated. Alex, this is... Log it, I said. Mark the exact time. Mark these coordinates. We're coming back. Lisa looked at me sharply. We're just... leaving. What do you want to search? I asked, forcing the words out evenly. We can't dig every centimeter. There's no sign he fell into a crevasse. No sign of collapse. If he's somewhere under this, it wasn't by anything we understand. She stared at the depression a moment longer, jaw tight. Then she nodded once, short and hard. All the more reason not to stay, she said. As we turned back, I thought I heard something faint under the wind. Not speech, not growl. A tinkling, almost amused sound, like bells. I didn't mention it. Not yet. The station felt different after Ezra walked out into the white. Quieter, yes, but not empty. The walls had a listening quality to them now, like the steel itself was waiting for a cue I hadn't given. I spent the next hour searching the module, not because I expected to find him, but because standing still made the silence settle heavier against my chest. His mug still sat on the table. Steam still clung faintly inside the rim. That detail broke something small inside me. I logged the event. Not the emotion, not the panic shaping my breath, just the facts. Personnel status: Ezra G. missing. Presumed deceased. No tracks. No recovery possible under present anomaly conditions. The anomaly band continued to hum steadily. A thin white peak pulsing like a heartbeat. A heartbeat that wasn't mine. When I stepped away from the console, I felt its rhythm in my teeth. I walked to my bunk and found my notebook open again. I hadn't left it like that. The last page showed the same handwriting that wasn't mine. Familiar, but with angles that cut wrong. Under the previous paragraph, a new line waited. Not yet. I shut the notebook so hard the cover bent. Outside, something scraped lightly across the exterior siding. Too deliberate to be wind. Too soft to be mechanical. I didn't check the window. I didn't need to. Whatever it was already knew I was listening. The generator stuttered around dawn. If dawn even meant anything anymore. The lights flicked. Once, twice, then steadied. A small, mundane thing. Something that should have annoyed me more than frightened me. But I had learned the rhythm of the station by then. That hesitation in the power wasn't mechanical. It felt like a breath, a thought. I checked the generator myself, despite the cold slicing at my face. The shed looked normal, except for one detail. The latch on the inner panel, the latch inside the shed, had frost on it, thick, white, as if something colder than the air had gripped it from within. I couldn't make myself touch it. On the way back to the module, bells rang faintly. Not ahead, not behind. Inside my left ear, like someone gently brushing a fingertip against the eardrum. The hum in the anomaly band pulsed in sync. I shut the door behind me, bolted it, and wrote another line in the log. Anomaly field appears responsive to human presence, possibly adaptive, possibly anticipatory. Further test not advisable. I stopped writing halfway through the next sentence when I realized my hand was shaking, not from cold, from the feeling I wasn't alone in the room. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. The bell stopped. The feeling didn't. Sleep had turned into a negotiation. If I stayed awake too long, thoughts slipped sideways and rewrote themselves. If I slept too deeply, the dreams felt real enough to leave fingerprints. That night or day, it blurred now. I dreamed of the station door opening. Only it wasn't a dream. The hiss of the seal breaking startled me upright, heart pounding so hard it felt like bruises blooming beneath my ribs. I grabbed the flashlight, stepped into the corridor. A shadow stood at the far end, tall, still, bent slightly, as if its spine had learned human shape from memory instead of anatomy. For a heartbeat, I thought it was Ezra, or Nikolai, or the version of my father wearing a face like a mask. But this silhouette was wrong, wider, angular, with something branching from the top, antler or antenna, or something closer to bone. The flashlight flickered. The figure didn't move. I whispered a wordless sound. Not fear, not courage. Just the body's involuntary plea. The lights flickered back on, and the corridor was empty. Only my own breath fogged the air. Only my own steps made sound. I checked the main door, still locked, still bolted, but the bolt was warm, like a hand had just left it. 3 entries appeared in the digital log overnight, none written by me. All time-stamped for times I was awake. The first line, "You should not be alone." The second, "You will talk to me soon." The third line was longer, more careful. "The story is already inside you. Let it finish. Let it tell itself." I deleted nothing. I couldn't make myself. Every deletion felt like it would confirm something's attention. The anomaly band widened again, from a whisper to a low organ note thrumming under the station. I tried humming back once, purely out of spite maybe, and the pitch shifted instantly to match me. I froze. The sound pulsed a little faster, like excitement. I shut off the monitor. The hum stayed. Inside the walls, inside the wiring, inside me. I rationed food by then. Not because supplies were low, Lisa had stocked well, but because eating required sitting, and sitting gave my mind too much room. Paranoia grows best in stillness. I checked the bunks again. Nikolai's untouched, Lisa's neatly made, Ezra's cluttered in a way that almost felt like a ghost had been rearranging it in imitation. While I stood there, something small and metallic rolled onto the floor from beneath Ezra's bed. A bell. Not a decorative jingle bell, not round. This one was older, carved, shaped like the kind tied to animal tags centuries ago. It didn't ring when it hit the ground. It didn't ring when I picked it up. It only rang when I whispered, "Stop." One clear note. Calm, understanding. Like an answer. I dropped it and backed out of the room. Behind me, the bell rolled once, toward me. I didn't pick it up again. By the time the rescue arrived, I lost the shape of hours or days. I only knew the end because the silence changed. The anomaly band, usually a shifting whisper, flattened. A single, straight line. A hold note, a waiting note. That was when the chopper blades entered the soundscape, distant but real. I didn't celebrate, didn't shout, didn't signal. Every rescue in the logs had gone wrong. Every attempt to intervene had happened inside the anomaly field's season. I stayed by the table. The rescue crew opened the door themselves. 3 entered, visors down, masks up, no hesitation. One asked, "Are you the last one?" I nodded, or I think I did. My body didn't feel connected to me at that point. They guided me out. I didn't look back at the station, but I heard something behind me. A single bell. Soft, almost fond, like it was seeing me off. The debrief was clinical, too clinical. They recorded my vitals, my statements, my inconsistencies. They noted the 3 missing. They noted my hallucinatory episodes. They archived my logs. But the thing they didn't include in any report? The audio file they recovered from the station server labeled Ridge Peak Narration 000. My voice, telling the story, all the way up until now, then continuing, saying things I never said, describing an ending I didn't write, an ending that included them and you. I listened to it only once. That was all I needed, because the final line in the recorded version wasn't my voice exactly, just close enough to feel like remembering someone else's dream. You're listening now, it said. So it knows you, and you know its story. All stories want to be told again, especially the hungry ones. Then bells, just a few, enough to mark the end, enough to promise there won't be one.